Hey, what's going on YouTube? Today's video, I am out at Bass Lake. I'm going to be riding Willow Creek and Mary Jane. So today's video is going to be a first rides impression on my brand new Ari Timp Peak 2.0, the Pro Edition, sorry, Elite Edition. So for my initial impressions, to give some background, I used to have a transition relay that used the Fazua Ride 60. So some referencing I'll make will be to the Ride 60, coming over from that and then coming on to the Bosch Gen 5. So first thing that I notice is how, I guess, powerful the new Gen 5 Bosch motor is, especially compared to the Ride 60. Don't get me wrong, the Ride 60 was no like slug, but this one definitely, it just feels like a more premium quality product, especially, you know, Bosch's background in manufacturing refrigerators, dishwashers, whatnot. Like, they're kind of known as the premier or premium manufacturer, and it's extremely noticeable, especially on their e-bike motors. Of course, there's nothing wrong with the Fazua Ride 60. It was a good, also German brand, but I find with the Bosch, since this is the 5th generation, and I believe Fazua is still on the 1st generation, this one is extremely refined, and now it just has all these extras that I really like.
Wanted to jump in here quickly. The audio is a little bit messed up. I was recording audio through a new way and had it in noise reduction, but the audio will be fixed for the next video. Sorry about that, guys.
So this isn't my first ride on this bike. This is now the 3rd ride, but the other trails that I was riding on, I feel like weren't really like super raw or rough, so I couldn't really test this bike to its full ability. And wow, it's actually a lot poppier than I was expecting. But yeah, I just feel like this is gonna be like the real like test track, as this is kind of like a black diamond trail and then a double black trail with some options. So my initial impression on the, I guess, like fast flowy stuff is that, you know, it rides well. I'm really amazed by how quiet the Bosch motor is, especially when going down chunky stuff. It feels great. And I'm still warming up these TRP, I think these are the DHR Evo Pros. They're the newest brakes, and they're pretty strong, quite grabby. Let's see what's down this. Boy, that is wet. Yeah, really, I do notice. So my transition relay weighed in about 45 pounds, and this one weighs in about 50. Definitely noticeable. the additional 5 pounds. All right, go nice and slow. Nice. That part's always a little scary. So something that I've noticed is definitely the weight. You know, you definitely feel the extra 5 pounds. I don't want to say it's a negative though, because the bike does feel not as poppy as my transition relay. Actually, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out, but it does feel relatively poppy, pretty playful, but also pretty blunt at the same time. Oof, nice right there. One thing that I do really like is the RockShox suspension on this. So this has the Zev Ultimate and then the Vivid Ultimate in the rear. And I definitely do really like RockShox. Got offline a little bit. I definitely do like RockShox a bit more than I like Fox currently. It's just preference. So on my relay, I had a Fox 38 and I had the Fox DHX rear shock, which is more of like a trail coil. It's not really meant to handle the big burly stuff, so I feel like that would get overwhelmed. And then the 38 was good, but one thing that I really like about RockShox that I've noticed is that it's a bit more supple off the top. That's one thing that I really like, at least. It's just harder to get into the travel with the 38. I really like how RockShox kind of just it feel like the buttercups is the thing that I really notice a lot. And also like the ease of adjustment. With Fox, you have so many different settings, and I feel like it's hard to know exactly how you want your suspension set up because you get so much adjustability. And of course, like dependent per person, but for me, I really like the RockShox. Suspension layout is pretty much the same between my Relay and this bike. For the most part, it's horse link. Not like they ride relatively the same, where I can't really tell you a huge difference on that. But definitely suspension feel is where I get most of that noticeable feel. Whew. Wow, this is already super blown out, and we're in like beginning of February. It's February 1st today, so I was expecting the trails to be a little bit more moist. Right now I have this bike set up in the short chainstay, just because I want to try it out this way. I think it's supposed to be a little bit, handguard, a little bit more poppy in this setting rather than in the longer chainstay, which is a little bit more stability. Wow, this acceleration is just insane on this bike. Whew. Wow, and these Maxxis tires, I haven't used Maxxis in a while, but they're darn grippy for sure. I'm running the Assegai in front, and I'm running the DHR2 in the rear. The Assegai has max grip, DHR2 has max Terra. Still trying to gain trust in these tires, but they're slowly building more and more trust in me. Whew. All right. Here comes one of the sketchiest parts of this trail. This section right here. Almost lost it right there. That was scary. Now, all right, here comes the second one. Not as sketchy as the other one. Those are always a little bit of a nail biter as I'm always crossing over them. I've crossed over them so many times, but I can never still be fully confident. So one thing I'm really enjoying on this Bosch is the e-mountain bike mode, because it puts in as much power as you're putting in. So when you really want to mash on the pedals, it's giving you that same output. And also I ended up doing the upgraded kiosk 400 CX screen, and it's you don't really need it, but it's one of those perks that I really like. I like being able to have that data on hand. So it'll tell me my range. Right now it tells me my watt output, my RPM. It'll tell you your speed when you're going downhill and or uphill. It just tells you so much information, which is cool. Coming from the Ride 60, you just have that little thing right here in the center of the down tube, center of the down tube, and doesn't really tell you too much information. It just lets you know your battery percentage in increments of 20%. Okay, so how does this bike compare to the SL e-bike that I had, the Transition Relay? So definitely the weight is going to be more noticeable, but I feel like the Transition Relay was kind of like I want to say like a Mustang 5.0, and this bike is kind of like a Hellcat. Like, it's more powerful, but obviously heavier. And it's not as nimble, but it is still, well, I guess you could say this is definitely not as nimble as a Hellcat, because Hellcats, if you know anything about cars, Hellcats are not nimble whatsoever. This bike is definitely nimble, but I would say it's 25% less nimble than a Transition Relay. Given the extra 5 pounds and just riding characteristics. Oh yeah, whew. Dusty there. But the acceleration is pretty insane, and right now I just have it in e-mountain bike. I don't even have it in turbo, so. And the main reason why I bought this bike and sold my Transition Relay is because I want to do enduro races, e-bike enduro races, and I wanted something reliable and also to put me on the same playing field as everybody else. So I wanted that 100 Newton meters of torque, which kind of seems like industry standard right now. So with this current suspension setup that I have of the RockShox Zeb and the Vivid Ultimate, it definitely feels like a more plusher, kind of more firm bike compared to the Relay. I feel like with the Relay, it wasn't as, how do I say, as firm, I guess you could say, firm, or it's just not as, it doesn't feel as safe. I don't know, I really can't like put it into words. Maybe later I will, but this bike just, it feels so much safer going way faster. It doesn't feel sketchy. I think because of the Relay, the coil would just get going the wrong way. the wrong line. The Relay would get overwhelmed in the rear end, where this Vivid Ultimate, it's kind of hard to make it get overwhelmed. It takes those repeated hits back to back way better. So, thank you. Whew. Wow. Yep, can confirm. This bike is so fast. Oh my gosh. The suspension doesn't get as overwhelmed as on the Relay. Going a bit too quick, but wow. And it's definitely a lot less rattly. Like, it allows me to just focus on the trail, which is really nice. So I currently have this bike in full 29er. It is mullet compatible, and my Relay was just mullet only. But I kind of think I'm gonna leave this bike in full 29er because I really like the clearance that I'm getting from the bottom bracket. And I feel like I'm not pedal striking as much as I would on the Relay. I still didn't pedal strike that much on the Relay, but I'll trade the playfulness for how fast this bike rolls over everything. So I think in my current configuration that I have this bike, I can just tell like it's very fast. I don't know if it feels faster because it's so quiet. In my last bike, I feel like it was fast too, but I feel like this one definitely has the whole package. Yeah, I think maybe it's just a Bosch motor, but yeah, I feel like this bike, it only has one speed and it really wants me to push it as fast as possible, which is weird because I felt like the Relay was the same thing and I felt like I was going super fast on my Relay, but maybe because this bike is just quiet, but I feel like, hello, have a good one, guys. But I feel like in the current configuration, this bike is just way quicker. These Maxxis tires have definitely proven to me that they're pretty trustworthy. I haven't ran Maxxis in like a few years. I've usually run Continental, Schwalbe. Let me make sure that this is cleared out. Yep, cleared out. Schwalbe. I always forget how scary that part is. Schwalbe, and then Michelin on my Relay. All right, let's test out the bottom out resistance on this. Oof, yep. Also, one thing I really like is the hydraulic bottom out on the Vivid Ultimate. It's so nice, where the DHX, I definitely feel like it would clink at the very bottom of the end stroke. All right. Oh boy. Yeah, I think Brian Cahal did a initial impression on this bike as well. And he said it just deletes bumps. And yeah, I can very much share, oh boy, share that same opinion. Run it out. I feel like this definitely deletes bumps a lot better than the relay. And of course, it might be suspension layout, a little bit of the suspension layout, and then the actual suspension. So something I forgot to mention was that this bike has the 800 watt hour battery. I think you get the option between the 600 watt and the 800 watt, and they didn't have any 600 watt in stock, so I had to do a force upgrade to 800 watt. I don't know if it was the right choice, but I'm definitely just gonna rock with it a little bit until they get some 600 watt hour batteries in stock. Right now, I'd say I've done about 16 miles total, and had a good amount of elevation gain. Had 2,500 feet of elevation gain, and I have about 58% battery left. Of course, I only weigh 155 pounds, so I feel like this battery is a little bit too overkill for me, but definitely just keep it for now. Not in a rush to switch it out to the 600, even though I feel like this bike would get a little bit more nimble. So I'm interested to see how this bike will ride with the 600 watt. So that is going to be all for the video today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you were a fan of the relay, I'm sorry that it's gone. But you know, if you guys want to follow along and potentially upgrade down the line to a Bosch CX5, you know, this will definitely be a channel where I'll talk about it more in depth, how it's treating me, the reliability and such. If you're here because of the Ari Timp Peak 2.0, just know I have a lot more content coming out soon. I'm going to be talking about how this bike performs. Definitely going to put it under a little bit more stress testing, and then you know, talk about range and whatnot. But also going to be doing enduro races on this bike and seeing how it holds up. So if you're interested in that, feel free to subscribe. And if you guys like the video, please give the video a like. And yeah, that'll be all. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.